Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to this place of light and comfort, where so many of us find what we need beyond what the everyday world offers us. I'm Mary Jean Taylor, honored, as always, to be helping with the service, joining our minister, the Reverend Dr. Dunkley, and our own Lynn Peterson, as they reflect on the nature of trees and what we can learn from them, such as this lesson observed by 68-year-old Sean Callahan, in which I found on the side of a tea box. I planted a maple tree next to the first house I owned, just a skinny runt of a thing. It seemed far off in the future before that tree would amount to anything. But when I went back there, 40 years later, I couldn't believe my eyes. The tree was towering over the house, the queen of the neighborhood. In the meantime, I'd become an old man. This was the first time I ever really believed that the world will go on just fine when I'm gone. Ever since then, I've been living in tree time. It's a fine way to live. Be you a visitor, a regular, or someone in between the two, this North Chapel community truly means for you to feel welcome here. Normally, we would invite you downstairs to coffee hour and would do our very best to let you know how happy we are that you have walked through the back door. These days, though, when nothing is really normal, and as we continue to care for one another's health, we find we need to adjust many of our practices. It is presently recommended that choirs and people do not sing, so we hum. And we may chat on the front lawn, though refreshments are on hold for the time being. And while we look forward to days when we will enjoy our beloved choir and coffee hours and beautiful, shining, unmasked faces, for now, we'll just keep taking good care of each other. And besides, masked or not, I feel your smiles and I know your faces. I feel grateful that you have chosen to make this service more special by being here. A reminder that this is a wonderful time to leave the world behind for a little while, which includes turning off or silencing your cell phones if you haven't already thought to do so. Your order of service is not only your guide to today's service, but also to what's happening in the North Chapel between our times together. So be certain to take a peek. June's worship theme is the Sixth Unitarian Universalist Principle. It's a lofty one, indeed. The goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. For our opening words, I chose parts of the essay, "We Were Made for These Times" by Clarissa Estes, who compares these days to rough seas, begging us to stay afloat and not lose hope. After, we'll take a few minutes for reflection, some gentle breath, and some blessed quiet before we continue our time together. Look out over the prow. There are millions of boats of righteous souls on the waters with you. Even though your veneers may shiver from every wave in this stormy roil, I assure you that the long timbers composing your prow and rudder come from a greater forest. That long-grained lumber is known to withstand storms, to hold together, to hold its own, and to advance regardless. We are needed. That is all we can know. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor suffering world, will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale.
Good morning. At the last Para La Tierra dinner at Marsh Billings, Chloe and I attended. Geraldine was there, and Charlie Shackleton, and Miranda Thomas, and Josie Watson, and Karen Gainey, of course. I think Peter Bowen was traveling. He would have been there otherwise. We were seated with several people that we didn't know, Chloe and I were, and we struck up good conversation. The food was lovely, and the music was great, provided by the Change the World kids themselves. Forrest Yeager was sharing his talents on guitar this time. He has many. The Para La Tierra dinner, or the For the Earth dinner, is an annual fundraising event organized by the Change the World kids and supports their tree planting project. In Central America, they've been doing this good work for many years. In fact, the most moving part of the evening for me, maybe for Chloe too and others, was the slideshow. We got to actually see what they've been doing in Costa Rica, planting trees that are required by migratory birds as they fly along a corridor that has been threatened by deforestation. The earth cannot breathe without its forests. The forests are the lungs of the earth. In more ways than one, they are our inspiration. Anyway, the slideshow was great, and the thing that moved me so deeply was a group photo of all the Change the World kids. They were gathered together outside. There was a bunch of them, so they had to huddle in. A couple of them climbed up into the tree that they were gathered in front of and leaning against. It's a lovely photo. Everyone is smiling, and one kid is actually hanging upside down from one of the lower branches that seemed happy to bear his weight. The coolest thing about the photo was that the tree was about 20 years old and had been planted by the Change the World kids back in the day. Like I said, they've been doing this work for many years. Helping migratory birds, helping the earth, helping all of us to breathe. Breath has been so troubled as of late with the coronavirus blues driving us absolutely mad. Terry McMillan writes on a different subject. She writes, "It's not marriage itself that's bad. It's the people that we marry that give marriage a bad name." She writes, I think life is one long introductory course in tolerance, but in order for women to get their PhD, she's got to pass Men 101. She wrote these words in a book that she published in 1992 entitled Waiting to Exhale. 30 years later, we are still in need of its message and its beautiful lesson. Indeed, for a people, for a nation, for a natural world that with us has been breathing so shallowly for more than 2 years now. Nations of migrants and mourners, seekers and sowers, and makers of myths, just sitting around and waiting, just like Terry taught us. All of us now are waiting to exhale in full measure. The whole earth does this with us. All of us are connected. All things are connected. Some of us know this and some of us do not yet know. Julia Butterfly Hill knows. She knows that all things are connected. Julia Lorraine Butterfly Hill. Do you know this name? She is the one who climbed an ancient redwood tree named Luna back in 1997, and she lived in its upper reaches for 738 days. 2 years, 1 week, 1 day. What a beautiful commitment. She was saving that tree from being cut down. What a beautiful, life-saving, love-affirming, life-giving, soul-renewing gesture of faith and kindness. I think that we should all do this. North Chapel in the trees. What do you say, Lynn? Do you want to go up and climb into the sky and live there with me for a while? We could learn there from the trees, and we could remember how to breathe. You might find this hard to believe, but Dr. Lynn Peterson and I are very different people. A lot of folks don't know this. A lot of folks think that we are twins because of our shared commitment to the natural world. People mistake me on the street, and they say, "Excuse me, doctor," and they say this, and I turn around, because doctor is part of my name now, and they say, "Aren't you that well-known surgeon? Didn't you get your start didn't you start the medical ethics program at Harvard? Weren't you stationed at Brigham and Women's Hospital back in Boston years ago?" And then I have to say, no, I'm Leon Dunkley. You're mistaking me for Lynn Peterson. It happens all the time, and it's really a bit tiresome, especially when they ask about Harvard, which, as I take it, is a program or a school or something. I think I've heard of it. This won't come as a galloping shock to anybody, but Lynn and I are very different people. I'm honored. I am more of a poet and more of a romantic brother. And Lynn tends to be more quantitative, more scientific. And when it comes to the issue of the environment, both sides are needed to address issues of climate change and carbon neutrality. The numbers really matter. I don't tend towards those. The science can save us. It won't be my poetry. Lynn, I wonder if you might help us understand this. I wonder if I might invite you to come up and share a few words. I'm going to make sure that mic is on and set up the camera for you.
Can I use this?
You can.
So,
And you
this poster here,
can unmask too, because we're far enough away.
okay, represents about 5 years of work, and it was started right here in the North Chapel. I was invited to give a reflection in August of 2018, and that sparked my thinking and enabled me. Daniel was supposed to give this service, but he had to back out for some reason or another. So it's led up to this poster, and I want to just take a few minutes to sort of look at the outline of this poster with you, because I think that captures the meaning of my work for the last 5 years. And you start out with leaves and sun. The leaves, of course, are attached to a diagram of a tree. And that's critical. Chlorophyll, it's in little packets inside those leaves, and there's 1,000 pores on the underside of each leaf on that hillside. Wow! And so the air, with all its carbon dioxide, and you know what that means for the climate, goes inside that leaf, flows inside there, and the chlorophyll, wham, takes the carbon dioxide out and turns it into oxygen, which we need to breathe, right? Plus, it makes fiber for the tree to grow, plants, etc., etc. Wow! If that isn't magic, I don't know what is. And it's so wonderful, and I guess it fills my heart with the same kind of joy that I find here in joys and concerns, and Diane's music, etc., etc. So this fits. Now, the thing I want to draw your attention to, I don't know if you have these sheets, but it's in the facts about carbon in Vermont. Now, this is not the kind of thing you read in the normal church bulletin, but this is important, and it's a religious kind of thing. Because if you get the numbers right, you can understand what's going on. So the numbers in this little square show that there's 46.1 million metric tons of carbon dioxide inside our forests. Outside in that forest out there is an enormous amount of CO2. And then, besides that, 1.4 million tons of carbon are taken out and put back as oxygen and fiber. So, isn't that wonderful? I mean, it's almost magic. And then the final thing, the thing to notice at this bottom part of that box, is that you and I are each producing 2.47 million tons. That's not mega million, but that's just million tons of CO2. And we're right in the same ballpark as our cars. The car produces the same amount. Now, what are we going to do about that if we really think that CO2 is a problem? The answer is not to get rid of people, that's for sure. So the answer has to be, we got to build that forest. We got to bring it up to its prime. And that doesn't just mean planting trees, it means really caring for that forest. One of the great things about Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, etc., is we've got a tremendous number of foresters, of people that have been trained, scientists that are forest trained to help us with that. So we've got to do something to optimize the role of those forests, because they're playing an enormous role in controlling our CO2 levels and our climate. Most of the major agencies, the United Nations, the COP26 group in Scotland, all point to magnifying or improving the forestry and around the world. And here we have in Vermont, and we're trying to show this in this graph, that you have this wonderful forest. And at the bottom of the graph, you can see there's places for you to go to the internet and get more information. If you're a landowner, if you're interested in joining a group or something like that, there are references to where you can engage and help us do this. So, can I keep going, Leon? Go ahead. Okay.
That's two more minutes.
Number two. Oh,
That's 2 more minutes.
pardon me? 1 minute. 2 minutes. I want to tell a little bit of a story, though, about this chart, about how it got here, why I'm sitting here, what in the heck is going on. Well, back in August, as I said, I was invited, or got to take Daniel's place and be able to talk on carbon, etc. And I want to say Wendy Smith was there, and I'll never forget Wendy, because I don't know what she saw so fascinating, but she was really fascinated by what I had to say. And at the end, she came over and sort of said thanks, and it was just something that she approved, which was an interesting sort of spark. And so the next day I went to Sustainable Woodstock, and Zach Ralph got involved. And Zach was just absolutely wonderful. He's a graduate of the Change the World Kids, just a marvelous human being. And before I knew it, Zach had contacted the Marshbillings Rockefeller Park, and they had arranged for a series of 10 lectures to be given at the Marshbillings Rockefeller. So over that next 10 months, once a month, we had an outside expert come telling us about what to do and what not to do in terms of the forest. And it was just unbelievable. Zach did a number of other things, and just indebted to his spirit and his energy and his help in that. The next thing, one of the people that attended one of those meetings was Tim Stout. Now, Tim is represented in this left lower box, and he has about 2,000 or 3,000 acres of forest land in Shrewsbury. And he's taken on this charge of sort of developing it. He's really the major sort of person who put this together and made this poster possible. But last weekend we had a wonderful party, sequestration party. Have you ever been to a sequestration party? It's great fun. It was a party of planting trees, because trees sequester that carbon dioxide, as you see on the graph here in several places, and then store it. And so they planted 200 trees, and 50 of those trees were American chestnut trees, the old chestnut tree that seems to have disappeared, but have been brought back to life by science. And also, as a result of sort of Tim's work, as well as the other things that have been going on, there was a major series of lectures last month in May on forests for carbon, sponsored and put on by the regional forestry association. So it was foresters from New York, from Maine, from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, all over the Northeast, and Northeast foresters. And there were hundreds of foresters attending that, all trying to understand how to manage forests for carbon. And we're not talking about planting zillions of trees, we're talking about planting thoughtfully and doing what we can do to the forests that are there. And we don't want to get rid of the wildlife either. We want to have deer, we want to have bear, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a challenge that isn't just sort of going to be a machinery kind of thing. We're going to have to understand the ecology and the climate, et cetera, in order to create the optimal way of controlling it. But what can we do? Well, you know, we can join the Conservation Commission. That's what we're looking for a new member. Please apply. Woodstock has 3 separate areas of town forest. They are not managed correctly. I guarantee that. I don't know exactly where they are. I just know it's a couple hundred acres, and we can do more with that. Number 3 is we've got about 3,000 acres of forest that is state forest, Calvin Coolidge State Forest, that's in Woodstock. Part of that Calvin Coolidge State Forest is over in Shrewsbury, where my friend Tim lives. Now, over in Shrewsbury, those citizens are taking an active role in managing that forest. They're challenging the forest parks and recreation. They're saying, no, we don't want you to cut there, okay? No, so we need to get involved as citizens, and we can do that. We have the option of doing that. Can we mount a Calvin Coolidge climate network or something like that that we can get involved and have a sequestration party? So there are a number of things we can do. I mean, I guess one of the bottom line things is, well, now, should the church invest in forests? Well, I don't know. You know, it's the finance committee. Let's ask the board of trustees. What do you think? There are opportunities here and things for us to think about. That's a little bit far-fetched, but it's serious, and this is important, and the climate is important. I want to just say one more thing, I guess. And that is that as a result of Zach, Ralph, and Tim, and many other people working on this, we've got the Vermont Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. Michael Snyder, he's the head of that. He's gotten involved. We had him up to my house for a private party, and Michael has now created a climate forester. And she is terrific. And so she's dedicating her whole professional life right now to climate and forestry. So here we have a really avid scientist. So it's interesting what can happen at this UU church when you get somebody as crazy as me. Thank you.
Well, and I just had one quick question about your presentation. You said that that you loved this church, you loved Joys and Concerns and Diane's music, etc., etc. We're gonna have a little brotherly conversation. Just kidding. Thank you for your presentation and for your commitment and for your humor and for your strength. It's a long haul, and you're an inspiration to me, so thank you for that. I want to close with the words of Julia Butterfly Hill, the woman who can keep pace with you, who I invite you to learn more about. She's the one that climbed the ancient redwood out in California. She climbed up into the sky and lived there for 2 years. I see you. Julia said, while I was in Luna, which was the tree, while I was in Luna, I learned that every issue we are facing is a symptom. The disease is the disease of disconnection. We are disconnected from the earth, we're disconnected from each other. We make choices and we don't realize that they are impacting all of us. When I came down from Luna, I wanted to help weave together that information for people, that sensibility. At the same time that we are working on the symptoms, we must also work on the disease in order to be able to get to the healing that our world and that our planet needs, end quote. We have to breathe deeply to handle thoughts as deep as these, to handle their power and their importance for us. And it starts with curiosity and with concern, and it becomes commitment. It's sustained by grace and love and by breathing. There is a UU hymn that sings, when I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. And I wonder if these words were inspired by the ancient redwoods, by the Change the World Kids trees that are growing in Costa Rica, by the forests of Vermont. I believe that they are inspirational. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Lean up against her, climb into her branches and live for 2 years. Hang upside down from her branches and enjoy life to its fullest. Know that trees with us are breathing, holding carbon dioxide within them, banking it, sequestering it, and releasing for us oxygen that is life-giving, life-affirming, life-sustaining. May we enjoy this in this beautiful day, this day of blue and partial cloud. And may we recognize ourselves as family holding up. May it be so. Blessed be and amen.